are starting the fourth and final part of our workshop for today. So we've learned about life script beliefs in the presenting past. We've learned how to identify a life script belief. Emma's given you an accompanying tool in terms of the table top, which is in the bonus recording that you can go through yourself. We've talked a bit about trauma, and Emma has shown us a trauma release tapping, which is in the workbook. And so now we're going to carry on at further trying to crack these life script beliefs. It can take time with people because it's worth remembering that when they're learned as a child, if you learned as a child, it's only okay if I never make anyone angry at me. If you're working with that with a client and as an adult they're getting in the position where they're going to say to someone, no, that's not okay, and it might make the other person angry, they're going to start to feel quite stressed and potentially dysregulated with it. And that's because, remember, these beliefs come from such a young place. And the child part, my experience of it symbolically, is that the child part will hold on to it for grim death because it actually may well feel like life and death. There's often no logic to it. So repetition of the tools and of the tapping is really important. Okie dokie, so we have hopefully released some of the energy of that trauma. I'm feeling very regulated actually, Emma. Next, how do we support clients in challenging and updating these life script beliefs further, and these beliefs that may have been defined by trauma? So I'm going to show you a simple, very powerful tool that we use in transactional analysis called the PAC model. You've probably come across it already. It's widely used in therapy and in beyond therapy, in management and teaching. So it doesn't require that someone is trained in TA in order to use this. It's very simple. It's one of the things I love about TA. So the PAC model, if we turn to the left-hand side of the slide, the PAC model, it helps us support individuals to identify the ego state from which they are reacting or responding from. And it can offer such an insight into how these internal states influence current thoughts and behaviour. If anyone is thinking of using ego states, there's a fantastic book. It's in the bibliography. It's called Counselling for Toes. It's one that I often recommend to clients if we're using ego states in depth. And it takes the story of Wind in the Willows and it applies ego states to it. So it's a fantastic little book. Okay, so back to what are ego states? Well, they're really just the different parts of our personality that we naturally shift between through the day, through that parent, adult and child. The three main ego states, P for parent, A for adult, C for child, and we move in and out them often unconsciously. Now, to have mastery in our life, it's about choosing the appropriate ego state at the appropriate time. Ego states, excuse me, can be applied to our interactions with others, but for the purposes of today's training, we're only going to look about what's happening inside ourselves or inside a client. So we're looking at the inner dialogue. We're not looking at if I was talking out to Emma, a conversation, a transaction, that would be an external dialogue. We're going to focus on an internal dialogue. So let's start with just a very general interpretation of the three circles on the left-hand side. The parent ego state, to think, feel and behave as if you were a parent. Adult ego state, to think, feel and behave as if you were an adult. The child ego state, you've got it, to think, feel and behave as if you were a child. Now let's look at it in greater detail with the diagram on the right-hand side. Now, while I'm talking about ego state, I'd like to give you a wee scenario so we can contextualise it. Imagine a scenario where someone is procrastinating on starting a big task. I'm sure that's not any of us. So let's look at the parent ego state. Well, the parent ego state represents the internalized values, rules, and messages from caregivers. All of their voices are in there. And that ego state is divided into two sections known as critical parent, sometimes that's called controlling parent, and nurturing parent. So let's look at the critical or controlling parent. It is often judgmental, the tone is harsh. It often echoes internalized authority figures. I think of it like that waggy finger voice. Do you have a waggy finger person in your life? Anybody? You should, you must, or maybe we're doing it to ourselves. The tone and the intent is really important here. And from the critical parent ego state, things will be said like, oh, you're so lazy, just get on with it. So thinking about this procrastination of doing a task. You always leave everything to last minute. When will you learn? Or you don't have time to be tired. Other people manage, why can't you? Okay, so you can hear the tone and the intent in there. If the critical parent ego state is overactive, if it dominates, it leads often to shame. You can see why we'd get anxious if that is what is running in our head, and self-sabotage, and many, many more. When it's in balance with the other ego states, it can be a bit motivating. You know, if I was pressing Zoom on the alarm on my phone in the morning 5 times, a critical parent voice that said, Jill, get up, you're going to be late, actually could be quite useful. It's important to note that all of these ego states and their subdivisions have a positive or a negative application to them. Okay, so just like critical parent could be very waggy finger, should, must, pulling you down, but equally a critical parent voice, like in the morning of Jill, get up, you're going to be late, that could be quite a positive application. Let's turn to the other side of the parent, the nurturing parent. Well, it offers care and compassion and emotional support. And we'd say things like, it's okay to feel stuck. Maybe start with a small step to just ease in to writing that report or doing that task. Or maybe you've done hard things before, you can do this too. Or be kind to yourself. Just take a short break if you need to and come back to it with fresh energy. So, but if the nurturing parent is out of balance, if it dominates, it could actually be overprotective. It could, of ourself. It could inhibit or disempower us. It could allow us to say no to things that might feel stressful or challenging, things that would be a stretch for us, but that actually might be quite good for us. Okay, so again, there's a positive or negative application. Let's turn now to the adult ego state. There's no subdivision, it remains whole. It's a rational, a grounded part of self. It responds in the here and now. It assesses the facts, it solves problems, it's rational, logical, cognitive, so it's very left brain. And it would say things like, what's getting in the way of you starting this task now? How about we break the task into smaller, manageable parts? You've got 30 minutes free. How can you use that time just to start? Just start the first step in your task. So it sounds great, and it is, but if it dominates and it excludes the other ego states, it's an over-intellectualizing. Now, while not wanting to be too typical, this is an example that is stereotypical. A wife says to the husband, oh, I feel upset, but I don't know why. If the husband is over-intellectualizing, he might say, well, I can't help if you don't know what's wrong. Come back to me when you figure it out. Which point the wife stomps out. But over-intellectualizing can happen, but also suppression of emotions, okay? Let's go to the child ego state. Oh, I love the child ego state. It holds all of our early emotional learning responses, all of our memories, and all those life script beliefs. The good ones like, I'm clever, and the bad ones like, I'm stupid. It holds all of them. So the child ego state is divided into two: adapted child and free child. The adapted child. All the life script beliefs are held in there. It's like a filing cabinet for them. The good supportive ones and the ones that are less helpful or might cause us distress if they are running round our head. The life script beliefs are held with the perception, with the cognition, and with the emotional capacity of a child. In there, they can be as fresh and alive as the day that an event happened, just as fresh. So, for example, if a child was laughed at in class for getting the answer wrong to a question, and from that event, unconsciously or consciously, they decided they were stupid. That's held in there, and maybe that affects the kind of job they'll go for, the kind of training they'll go for, the way they'll use their voice. The adapted child behaviours, a lot of them are about gaining approval and staying safe. They're about compliance, they're about fitting in, they're about pleasing people. So from that place, we might say things like, if it was more on the negative side, let's think about this task that's getting bigger and bigger and procrastinated. I know I should do it. I'm just scared I'm going to get it wrong. If I don't get it done, people will be disappointed in me. Oh, I really want to get it right, but I keep doubting myself. Now, if this dominates, the result can be anxiety, perfectionism, people pleasing, procrastination, and living with a wonky sense of distortion about ourselves with limited self beliefs. On the other side, positively, this part, because it's about cooperation, fitting in, that's where all the rules for society are. On the motorway, we drive at 70 miles an hour in the UK. Okay, so it can help us fit in. Let's go to the other side of the child, the free child. Well, the free child, spontaneous, creative, emotionally open, joyful. It brings playfulness, it brings imagination, it brings curiosity. And in response to this procrastinated task, it might say things like, I just want to do something fun instead. Or this is boring. Why do I have to do this? Or it might say, oh, I'll do it later. I'm just going to scroll on TikTok. Not that any of us would ever do that. So if it's unbalanced and if the free child dominates, a person could be impulsive, emotionally explosive, and very disregarding of boundaries. It's so egocentric. It's all about them, their needs and their wants in the moment now. I don't know if anyone has an adult in their life who throws a tantrum. It is highly likely that they will be acting out of a free child ego state. But when the free child is balanced with the adult and the nurturing parent, it adds vitality and it adds authenticity to life. So one of the most common things that clients come with for us, I wonder if it's the same for you, is with a really strong inner critic. So let's stick with the procrastinating scenario and let's look at what is actually happening in here. So the inner critic is often a result of that critical parent and adapted child working together, being in cahoots. They are kind of in agreement with each other and they dominate, and the nurturing parent and the adult are dormant. They're out the picture. So in this slide, you'll see that the critical parent and the adapted child are dominating. They're loud. We could almost say it's like their volume is loud, and they're represented in pink for being dominant. And the nurturing parent and the adult and the free child, they're dormant, they're quiet. They are represented in grey. So Bearing in mind the critical parent, that harsh, judgmental, waggy-fingered voice and the adapted child that internalises all the messages and adapts. So this dynamic of the inner critic, which it causes such pain, doesn't it? Such inner conflict, anxiety, low self-worth, chronic self-attacking, a lack of confidence, a lack of trust in ourselves. So how can we help clients with this? How can we support them? Well, what we do is, first of all, we need to help them recognise that dynamic of the inner critic, and we start to break the monopoly between that, bouncing between critical parent and adapted child. And we do this by turning the volume up on the nurturing parent, so that comfort, that compassion, that love. And also in the adult, so they're no longer dormant. And we turn the volume down on the critical parent and the adapted child, so they no longer dominate. So, strengthening of the adult ego state, we employ a technique called reality testing. We reality testing the distorted life script beliefs that you may have already uncovered with your client through the tools we've shown you already. So this could sound like, is it true that you're lazy? And the person might say, well, I'm not really. I get up early. I do a lot in a day. Okay, they're not lazy. Is it true that you just can't be bothered doing this task? Well, no, because, I tend to usually get on with things. Okay, so you're not lazy, and it isn't that you just can't be bothered. So we start to bring in that adult ego state, the thinking, the rational, the logical, to begin cracking the life script belief further. And we are really starting to challenge these life script beliefs more. So examples of strengthening that adult ego state, making it louder, and what it would sound like. It has objectivity, it has clarity, it has balance, to step into the adult ego state. Here's what it might sound like. You should have started that by now. Excuse me. But actually, it's okay. You've still got time. Where are you going to start? It might also say things like, okay, so what's step one? Break it up into smaller pieces and just start. Okay, so the rational, the logical. And in that, we also start to bring in and turn the volume up on the nurturing parent voice, okay? And it would sound like, this task feels really big and overwhelming, doesn't it? It makes sense that just starting it feels hard. Would be for me too. Sometimes you just have to be kind to yourself and take it one small step at a time. Okay, so it's very encouraging. Or it might say, you're not lazy and you're not failing. You're likely feeling a mix of pressure and fear. And that's completely human. What if we broke it down together and into something more manageable, just to help you get started? So can you see how that voice would help support the client? So we need to turn up the volume on that ego state. And just what I've done here in modelling the voice from the adult and the nurturing parent, we model to our clients. They might not have those voices when it comes to the core belief, the script belief. So we might need to model it so the client can integrate it. It takes repetition, as I said, because these life script beliefs, they can feel like strongholds in the psyche. They can feel like life and death because they come from such a young place, and they could be so alive and so fresh. So this process of strengthening the adult and the nurturing child, it helps the nurturing parent, helps clients to identify the inner critic dynamic, strengthen that ego state by modeling that adult voice so the client can integrate it, introduce that compassionate, nurturing parent response to help them heal and model it to them so they can integrate it. And all of that together means that we're challenging and we're rewriting our life script beliefs. In TA, we call it reparenting.